Askreddit asks, what nonsense did you believe for way too long before you found out it was made up?
My parents told me that the little IR receptor, little glass bubble, on the living room TV was a tiny camera and that it would record me and my sister when they weren't home, and they would watch the tape to make sure we didn't lie to them about what we did. This was a throwaway line my mom said once to get my sister to confess to something they knew she did. She was 5 and I was 7, and I believed that shit until I was 18. I knew how televisions worked and I knew how remote controls worked. But for some reason I never put 2 and 2 together until I was getting ready to move out for college, and I asked my parents, "Hey, where did you get that old TV that had a camera in it? Can I have that for my dorm to make sure my roommate doesn't mess with my stuff?" I'm still feeling the residual embarrassment of that a decade and a half later.
That my dad was sleeping on the sofa because of his bad back. Opening parenthesis dot.
I had the opposite realization with my dad. He started sleeping on the sofa when we were young, and I thought it was because my parents were fighting. Turns out he really did just hate the bed they'd newly purchased because it was too soft and hurt his back. My parents just got a new firmer bed and he's been sleeping in it with my mom since. Weird.
In our house it was his snoring.
Up until I was 18 I thought that when a man had a vasectomy that his testicles were removed completely. And I always thought to myself there must be a better way. Do you know what kind of toll 3 vasectomies has on a person? Quote dot.
You couldn't remove the balls because that's where the pee is stored.
Grown adults in a country with good sex ed still believe and ask this question, and others like it.
I, born 1982, believe that my Game Boy needs to rest after playing on it, since it gets tired just like a person. Clever parenting. In hindsight, winking face. That's kind of adorable. Closing parenthesis dot.
Tried something like that on my kid. He did not buy it at all. Smart fucker. So adorable. I love this.
So when I was little, probably 3 or 4, I was eating grapes one day and my grandmother told me very seriously that if I eat too many grapes, they'd go down and end up in my ballsack. Later that day while taking bath I remember I felt my ballsack and crying out loud as I assumed it was the grapes I ate. Yeah, it took a while for my mom to convince me that they were already there.
That's fucked up, Grandma.
Excuse me, what?
Why the hell would she tell you that?
When I was a kid, my mom had this old car with a turn knob dial for the radio. She told me it only got oldies radio stations because it was so old. When they gave that car to my brother, he immediately ripped the radio out and put in a new sound system. I always assumed he just wanted the new radio stations. Then I was in college riding in a friend's old beater car and we were listening to a top 40 type radio station and I was like, holy shit, how is your car able to get modern radio stations? Quote dot.
Mega.
I thought oral sex was people talking about sex. It didn't help that the definition I read said something about using a mouth and tongue to induce sexual pleasure.
My older cousin told me that U-Haul trucks were always full of whatever the picture on the side of the truck was. This made sense to me. Coke trucks were full of Coke. Walmart trucks were full of Walmart stuff. So why wouldn't the truck with a submarine on the side be full of submarines? I was 8 or 9 when I asked my mom how they got dinosaurs into a truck if they were all extinct. I think she actually took my temperature after that question.
Haha, Walmart stuff. Dot.
Oh god, the spider truck.
One person told me that if I ever eat oysters I would have to chew on them, otherwise they would stay alive and grab my esophagus. Another person told me that if I did, it would release gastric liquid into my mouth and dissolve my tongue. I don't eat oysters.
I thought President Andrew Jackson was black because his last name was Jackson and everyone with the same last name must be related. Socially he was black because the Jackson 5 were all black. I learned differently in about 4th grade when the teacher couldn't stop laughing when I explained why the picture of Andrew Jackson was wrong in our book. Edit. Thank you kind stranger for the gold. I mean, I hope you can see the humor in that now. Because that is hilarious.
Doctor for male, doctress for female. Right?
There are no female goats. A female goat is a sheep. Dot.
I used to work at an older hospital. In the OR, the changing rooms were labeled doctors for men's and nurses for women's.
Doctor, doctrix.
Every extra time you press the button at the lights to cross the road, it resets a timer and you have to wait longer to cross. I once had a job counting traffic. And pedestrians would walk by me asking what I was doing. I would explain to them that the crosswalk buttons are actual fragile and that the municipality has spent XXX fixing them because of people pressing them too many times. I think I fooled a lot of people and there's probably rumors going around the family and friends now. I have successfully convinced my nephew, aged 12, that if you push the button repeatedly it makes the light change faster.
My dad told my sister that the bumps in the road, lane dividers, are road braille for blind people who drive. She believed well into adulthood.
My dad used to tell me that the concrete barriers dividing roads were dinosaur stoppers. When my brothers or I disagreed, he always stated, "Well, you don't see any dinosaurs, do you?"
Similarly, my mum told me that when she was little, my grandpa, her dad, would drive her and her sister to school with his eyes closed and just use the road bumps as a guide.
When characters in movies and TV shows were killed, they actually used prisoners on death row and actually killed them. Edit. All these responses have been fun to read. Glad to know I'm not the only retard. Although one guy says I'm stupid. Also, there are a shitin of folks from Ohio on this thread. And, I get it, Romans did this too, maybe the Greeks as well.
I used to think it was people who wanted to kill themselves and let others do it in exchange for being on a movie.
Fool me once.
That speed bumps were actually the resting place of the deceased. And basically they'd lay some bodies down, pave over them, and you had a speed bump. I was a naive kid. And my uncle was as jerk. Actually, in Puerto Rico we call the speed bumps muertos, dead people. In England they can also be called sleeping policemen.
Dia de los speed bump.
Bonsai cats. I found a website when I was in college that advertised cats put into glass jars and left there to grow into the shape of the jar, with a hole for waste and a hole for their mouths in the special jars. I was horrified and showed some friends who were also horrified. Months later a friend of mine was like, "Wow, you really got us with that website. Sappy. Ha ha ha. I thought it was real." "Oh, yeah. Ha ha. Of course it is not real and I was enacting fun japery," said I. Ha 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 ha. Ha. I'm an idiot. Edit. I feel so gratified that so many others were taken in by the bonsai cats. Hello, fellow gullibles.
I was told when I was a child that blood wasn't replenishable. So anytime I got a cut or slice I would band-aid up for days. Thinking about how I'm probably still about 98% full of blood and how long I can make it last.
I can't imagine what you would think if you saw a blood drive.
Women would be doomed.
My pet rabbit went to a new home at the farm. I was at university when I discovered it was a lie. When pet rabbits who already live on a farm get old, they move to the city and live in a hipster suburb where they spend their days sipping coffee.
Wait, are you telling me that Mr. Nibbles didn't join the circus either?
That I was adopted. The story went that they found me in a basket in the river. I knew that was BS because it matches the Moses story too much. I just assumed I had been kidnapped. Wasn't till I was about 10 that I realized it was all made up and I was actually my parents' biological kid. Edit. Thanks for the gold.
The joke in my family is that I've been found under a cabbage leaf. But it was clearly a joke. I cannot believe your parents let it get so far as to make you believe you had been kidnapped.
What the hell? That's messed up to tell a kid.
Don't use paper bags. Use plastic. Save a tree in the rainforest. My school taught that nonsense for Earth Day. Then I have learned of tree farms. Then we learned paper decomposes far faster. Then we learned plastic is far worse in every way.
Yet plastic bags are still in the majority.
I once asked my older cousin what BDSM meant and she said, Beijos da Sailor Moon, Portuguese for kisses from Sailor Moon. So 10-year-old me started using BDSM heart as my online signature.
Wow, you just reminded me. Someone called me fellatio at school one day and not knowing what it meant I just thought they were being funny and made up a word. Later I was playing a video game and put fellatio as my character name. My dad noticed and was noticeably upset. Props to him. He didn't get mad, just asked me why I'd written that. Then poor guy had to explain to me what it really meant.
I mean, it sounds like a normal Dark Ages name.
As a kid watching Shrek, seeing Puss in Boots get in trouble for having catnip on him, I always just assumed cat owners had to go to some pet black market to get a hold of the shit. I didn't find out catnip was not an illegal substance until I was 23 years old.
Somewhat related, I thought the black market was a physical place where people went to buy illegal things. Sort of like Nocturne Alley in Harry Potter. I always wondered why the police didn't just raid the black market and shut it down if it was so bad.
When I was younger, my dad told me that horses were called cows, and that cows are called horses. I went by this terminology until 3rd grade, where I got into a heated argument with one of my teachers which led to my first and only school suspension. Thanks, Dad. Edit. Typo.
He probably laughed his ass off when he heard the reason.
There's a sign we passed to visit my boyfriend's father for performance horses. But the field right where the sign is has cows in it. Now anytime we see cows we say, look at those majestic performance horses.
My friend and I found several legit-looking videos on YouTube years ago that showed evidence of mermaids being real. I spent an entire week passionately defending the existence of mermaids to my whole family and people I work with expressionless face.
I thought you were about 12 when you found that video and that's cutte on people I work with. Oh.
That porcupines shoot the quills. Also,
Thought that dogs were sprayed rather than spayed, and that there was a special castrating spray you could buy. Raised this once to my girlfriend with the worry that someone could get this and use it on people, and she proceeded to laugh until she almost vomited. I was doing a master's degree.
That's fucking amazing.
What makes this even funnier is that only female dogs are spayed.
I hope you didn't do your master's thesis on youth in Asia.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and above all, have an excellent day, you wonderful people.